And it turns out this car shouldn't really exist. Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Now in the collection video for my new daily driver, this 2020 Audi S4 Avant TDI, I mentioned it had a somewhat unusual spec. And in the few weeks that I've owned it, I've done a lot of research on this, and it turns out this car shouldn't really exist. So in today's video, we're going to have a look at the specs of these Audi S4 TDIs. We're going to look at the options, and then I'm going to explain to you exactly what this car's got that it shouldn't have in the UK market. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you guys how you can support the channel. The easiest way to do that is simply to subscribe. We're still getting a lot of views from non-subscribers, and it's amazing to get those views, but it would be even more amazing if you could subscribe as well. So if you like what you see, I'm sure you know what to do by now. Okay, now let's talk about the correct spec for a UK Audi S4 Avant TDI for the 2020 model year, because by knowing that, you'll then be able to fully appreciate how weird my car is. Now at launch, there were 3 trim levels. You had the S4 base model, you had the S4 Black Edition, and you had the Vorsprung. Now the S4 base model and the Black Edition, or the S4 Bling Edition, you could say, and the Black Edition are very similar. The only differences are cosmetic when it comes to the basic spec. So the S4 Bling Edition has all this bright work. The S4 Black Edition, it's all been de-chromed. So this is a standard spec. Audi UK were very keen to drum into us at the press launch in the summer of 2019 that the basic spec was really good. Actually, it's true. So you've got 8.5 by 19-inch wheels with 255/35/19 tyres. On this car, you've got the high gloss styling pack. On the Black Edition, you've got the black styling pack. You've got LED headlights, but not matrix. You've got LED rear lights with dynamic indicators, but you didn't get LED matrix with dynamic front indicators. You've got heated, folding and dimming door mirrors. You've got super sport seats, which were electrically adjustable with massage function. You've got the MMI touchscreen, which was new for the A4 facelift, with Navigation Plus, heated front seats, matte brushed aluminium inlays, which are piano black on the Black Edition, 3-zone climate, traditional non-adaptive cruise control, front and rear parking sensors, and rear view camera, and power tailgate. And you also got Audi smartphone interface, which gave you Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. In fact, the only options listed for the base model and the Black Edition are the comfort and sound pack, which Audi UK said was essential because it gave you Bang & Olufsen sound system, the 3D bird's eye view camera, extended LED lighting for the interior, and keyless entry. And the other option was the sunroof. Now, let's have a look at the spec of the top model, the Vorsprung. Okay, so as I've just pointed out, the spec of the S4 Bling Edition and Black Edition was pretty comprehensive. You might want to add a couple of minor things like, for example, adaptive dampers or adaptive cruise control. Maybe that would be about £2,000 maximum for those 2 things. Well, the bad news was that you couldn't have those unless you went for the Vorsprung model, which I imagine was quite frustrating because that was quite a lot more expensive and gave you a lot of things you may not actually want. So with Vorsprung, you got the head-up display, adaptive cruise control, adaptive dampers, sport differential, LED matrix headlights, heated rear seats, and the panoramic glass sunroof on the Avant. There were still some options as well. So for example, if you wanted the factory tow bar, that was extra cost. The storage pack, which is really useful, was extra, and because it's a diesel, you could have had a bigger AdBlue tank. Right, now let's talk about my car, and it's £10,000 worth of options. Okay, so why has my Audi S4 Avant TDI got such a funny spec, which we're going to talk about shortly? Well, I think key to that was that it started life as a demonstrator at Portsmouth Audi, having been registered in September 2019, and this was only a matter of days after the press event where I drove one for the very first time. And at the launch, there was no Vorsprung model, so it looks like Audi Germany spec these cars so they can demonstrate a lot of the things that customers can buy, and that's good for press launch cars. That's also good for demonstrators. Now I know Audi UK had 2 press cars on the go. One was a 19 reg Quantum Grey one that I drove at the press event. Another one on a 69 reg appears in a Car Guru's video, but I've not seen that anywhere else. By the way, it's worth mentioning that I didn't go looking for this funny spec S4 Avant TDI. I mentioned to Ed at APS Specialist Vehicles in Brackley that I was looking for one, and believe it or not, within 48 hours he'd been offered one in part exchange against an SQ7, and within a few days the deal was done. And it was only when I got the car home and looked underneath it and saw the sports differential nestling there on the rear axle that I realised the spec was very close to the press car I'd driven in 2019. And when I looked into it even more closely, I realised it was identical to those cars that I'd been watching just a few days earlier, researching the purchase of this car. The only difference with this car and the press car is the exterior colour. This is Mythos Black, that was Quantum Grey. Both are extra cost options at £675. Now, I've got £10,000 worth of options to go through, well, actually £9,895. A lot of them you couldn't spec, but when Audi gave that press car to the media, they put a little laminated sheet in it and it listed the cost of the options that you couldn't spec, if that makes sense. And I've got those down here. So, paint, as I mentioned, £675. Head-up display, which should be exclusive to the Vorsprung, £1,025. Adaptive S sports suspension with damping control, again, Vorsprung exclusive, £1,000. Audi Sport differential with torque vectoring, again, Vorsprung exclusive, £1,400. LED matrix headlights with LED rear lights and dynamic indicators front and back, again, Vorsprung exclusive, £625. We have the 3D camera, which is part of the comfort and sound pack, which this car doesn't have, and it's also standard on the Vorsprung. It's been spec'd individually here for £375. This is an interesting one. We have carbon Atlas inlays. Now the base model should have silver inlays, and the Vorsprung and Black Edition have got black, piano black inlays. These were £475 extra. We have the driver assistance pack. This comes with a load of things, but the most important thing is adaptive cruise control. Again, this was Vorsprung exclusive, £1,200. We have the storage and luggage compartment pack. That I think was available as an option on any of them actually, and that's £195. We have the extended LED interior lighting pack, which was comfort and sound pack or Vorsprung exclusive, spec'd individually here, it's £100. This is a weird one as well. Red brake calipers. Now this wasn't available as an option on any of them. It cost £350. It brightens the car up nicely. I have seen a later Black Edition with them, so maybe the spec changed later, but this, what we're talking about here, is really 2020 model year, and all this would have gone up as well in later years because it was built till 2023. Another weird one, dynamic steering. Shouldn't be available on any of these from what I can work out. It's not listed as an extra for the Vorsprung. If you've got one, I'd like to know if you've got that as standard. That would have been £1,025. And then we have the City Assistance Pack with Park Assist package. So there's a few things to protect you when you're driving around cities. It's also got the self-parking thing where it will do parallel parking for you. That should be Vorsprung exclusive, £1,250. And finally, we have tow bar prep. Now this doesn't give you a tow bar, which is an option. A full tow bar is an option. Tow bar prep just gives you the wiring should you want to connect one. It makes it a lot easier. Again, that's not listed as an option on any of the S4 Avant TDIs, and that would have been £200, which brings us to £9,895. Now I'll demonstrate some of these key options so you can see their value if you're looking at buying an S4 Avant TDI. Okay, let's start off then with the interior because there are a few things in here that I want to demonstrate, starting with the head-up display. So this displays your speed, and it's got the lane boundaries for lane assist on there at the moment, which I can probably turn off, yeah, just by pressing that and they stay off. And you can put traffic signs on there as well if you want to run traffic sign recognition. I can see it perfectly fine now in these glasses. I can see it fine with my glasses off altogether. If I wear polarized glasses, which are actually better for driving, it makes it pretty much obscured, even if it's on its maximum brightness. You can adjust the brightness here and the height of it as well. Is it worth £1,000? Well, if you want to use it, it's great, but I don't really miss it when I don't have it. Next up, let's talk about the interior ambient lighting. So there's a few different colours, and it's in the cup holders and probably in the doors as well. I've not really driven this car at night much, so can't really talk about that, but you can link it to Drive Select as well. So if you go for a sportier mode, it turns the ambient lighting red. There's a screen on the infotainment system as well for adjusting it. There's Impulse, Maritime, Caribbean, link to drive select. There's also individual, which gives you a wide range of colours. How many colours? 24, 20, 30 different colours. Brilliant. And we have also got the storage pack, which gives you straps on the side of the boot wall. The interior trim panels have got straps on them which are adjustable for holding things in place. You get a net partition on the left hand side into the wheel arch there. You get nets on the backs of the seats. The most useful thing is this massive locker down here. It's like 3 times bigger than one on a Golf, and it's also flock lined. While we're in the cabin, I should just demonstrate the 3D camera, which gives you the bird's eye view. I've had these before in press cars, and I've never really got used to them and found the benefit of them. But now I've lived with this car a bit longer than a press car, I can tell you I probably could not live without it. It's brilliant for when you're parking into a space between white lines, because you can see from above and position the car to perfection. It's also funny seeing a camera. I'm used to cameras on the back of the car, but not on the front. So there's one here in the grille, and that's quite good for, you know, exact positioning of the car. It's available as part of the comfort and sound pack, so most cars will have it. It's also standard on the Vorsprung. So yeah, try and find a car with that because it's brilliant. Okay, so out here we have got, in addition to the LED rear lights with dynamic indicators, we've got LED matrix headlights with dynamic indicators. This would be, if you could spec it, just £625. That's money well spent, but unfortunately it's only available normally when it's bundled with the Vorsprung pack. Also for £350, and as far as I can tell not available in any configuration, we have the red brake calipers. So these are £350, and just like the black ones, they're actually 6 pistons, so it's a pretty decent braking system. Now in the past, red calipers have indicated the car's got the dynamic package, which gives you the sport differential, dynamic steering and adaptive dampers, and possibly a top speed limiter raised from 155. Now this car's got the sport differential, the adaptive dampers and the dynamic steering. So whether this is an unofficial dynamic pack on this car, I don't know. I need to go to Germany and see if I can get it faster than 155. But the other bits I can demonstrate now on the road here in the UK. Okay, so we're in full dynamic mode. That means the rear diff, the dampers and the steering are all in dynamic mode. The diff's probably the hardest thing to demonstrate because it means I've got to throw basically nearly 2 tons of car around a corner into understeer and then keep on the power so the rear diff comes into play. We'll give it a go. This road's pretty big and we'll see what happens. So 60 miles an hour, speed limit into this corner, and maybe I can be a little bit more abrupt with the steering. Oh my god, yeah, it tightened its line then. So yeah, there you go, sport diff. You do need that, unfortunately it has to come with Vorsprung. Dynamic package, dynamic steering gives you more weight when you're in the mood. Like now it feels good. It feels sharp, not too sharp. Stability, this is an Autobahn car and you don't want a twitchy steering at those kind of speeds. But when you're in town, say you need to do, I don't know, a sharp turn at a junction like this, you want the steering to be as high ratio as possible and to be nice and light, which I'll demonstrate now. So I can use one finger to do this now and it feels lovely, and look at that turning circle is pretty good. That's it. And then now let's talk about the dampers again. You need to have a Vorsprung for that. Dynamic steering I don't think is available on any of them, which is a real shame because it's actually quite good now. Adaptive dampers, well, we're in dynamic mode, believe it or not, it's actually perfectly fine for UK roads. So it might be a little bit sloppy on a track. It's not a track car. For once, they've set dynamic mode to feel good when you're in the mood on a UK road. That's brilliant. You don't have to go into individual mode, set everything to racy and the dampers into comfort or normal. It's actually fine all in dynamic, which makes life a lot easier. If only I didn't have to fiddle with the drive select button down here to select that. And if you want comfort, just choose comfort mode and that just relaxes the whole car. Now we're stuck behind a tractor, so to talk about more normal things. We've got lane assist, which comes as one of the packs. You might actually not like the sound of that, but trust me, it's quite clever because you can set it so that it only does lane assisting in a very mild state. The default state's a little bit more intrusive like it is on a lot of cars, but the mild state is fine. You can live with that and it doesn't get on your nerves. We've got blind spot warning as well, which comes with one of the packs, which is a nice touch. And there's a few other bits and pieces to look after you when you're driving, you know, when it comes to sensors, because it uses the same sensors a 3D camera does to monitor other cars around, so you don't have little accidents in car parks, which is a nice touch. We've got adaptive cruise control. You'll probably be familiar with that with a Golf. Well, it's a little bit more advanced on this car because it remembers the distance you've set, because some people like to be really close in the Audi position, some people like to be further back. Generally cars defaulted to the safest distance, or this one can be programmed to remember where you left it. And it also has got the traffic jam assist function, which basically means you don't have to touch the brakes or the throttle in traffic. As long as you're not sat stationary for too long, the car will just stop and then move and stop and probably even steer as well. It's a shame a lot of that is Vorsprung, to be perfectly honest, but yeah, I don't know, is it easier to just pay the money for a Vorsprung or just wait till one of these comes up? I don't know how many of these funny spec cars there are. If you've got basically a 2020 or 69 reg car with red calipers, then the chances are, yeah, you're lucky enough to have one of these. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volks Wizard video. Do comment, do subscribe, and yeah, see you for the next one very soon. I'll hopefully be taking this car on a long trip to Germany to try and find the Golf 8.5, which should have just gone into production. So if you're in Germany and can just tell me if these cars are being made, if they're turning up at dealerships, or if they're on rental fleets, then do get in touch with me directly, Andrew at volkswizard.co.uk. Thanks.